trees on the boulevard.
Gave that up for Lent.
All right, let's call to order Brainerd City Council. It's Monday, March 17th, 2025, 7:30 in council chambers. Please call the roll.
Bevins?
Yes.
Chezak?
Yes.
Johnson?
Here.
Stunek?
Here.
Yeager?
Yes.
Erickson?
Here.
O'Day?
Yes.
Bedell?
Here.
Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, number 4, we have approval of the agenda.
Mr. President,
Mr. Chezak.
move the approval of the agenda with one item added, and that would be, I believe, perhaps under new business, and that would do precisely discussion of only of the city administrator's email we received related to the retreat that we had last Monday. Just discussion of that item, no action to be taken, other than perhaps having it on the agenda at a future meeting. And then I'd
Discussion item at 10D
Okay.
or 10E.
That sounds good to me. And then also, we'd like to remove the consent calendar item of the administrator's evaluation for discussion, which would show up immediately after the consent calendar is approved.
All right. We have a motion.
Second.
We have a motion by Chezak, second by Johnson. So adding the first discussion after this would be just a discussion of the review.
Of the evaluation, it's just, yeah,
Okay.
just a summary of the
Okay.
evaluation. Just have that as a item underneath consent.
All right. All in favor?
Aye.
Against, same sign. That motion passes, and we will move on to that item.
Prior, I'm sorry.
Okay, we'll do the consent calendar then first.
I'd move to approve consent as amended.
All right, this is a notice of public that all matters listed are considered routine by council and will be enacted by one motion. There will be no separate discussion of these items unless good cause is shown prior to the time the council votes on the motion to be adopted by roll call. Please call the roll.
Bevins?
Yes.
Chezak?
Yes.
Johnson?
Yes.
Stunek?
Yes.
Yeager?
Yes.
Erickson?
Yes.
O'Day?
Yes, and we will move on to that discussion item. Mr. Chezak?
Okay, I asked for this to be taken off because I cannot support it in the sense that there's a pay increase involved with this. At the closed session, I had no redress, and I would, I guess, think that at that time, I was looking for support of the council as well, and I didn't get any. Other than this one item, which I'd like to ask about in the summary, and it is the City Administrator Broyles was asked to provide a monthly council priority status update. I don't know exactly what that is and how that's supposed to be implemented. A monthly priority status update. When we discussed this, I was thinking of more of a unfinished business list to see where we're at with the items. If that's the same thing, I'd be happy with it. That is in the summary, that's why I read that. So if anybody could, maybe Gabe, you could explain exactly what that would entail in your opinion, or what your idea of that is.
Mr. Johnson?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. President. Yeah, Councilman Chezak, that's what I was thinking. Those are actually my words, and Chris and I were putting it together. That was one sentence. I used council priority status update report monthly, but it is trying to just reflect what we talked about in the review to keep us up to speed on where we're at with any number of things.
Okay.
It would be like an unfinished business or whatever, but just something that's routinely in front of us so we can see where we're at.
Okay.
So, Mr. Johnson, you're okay with the way it is on the summary, I assume?
I'm okay with the way the summary is, yes.
Okay.
I just want a clarification for that, but
Okay. Anything else?
nope.
Otherwise, we should vote to ratify that summary, I believe.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Bevins, second by Stunek. Any more discussion?
Require a roll call.
You want a roll call? Tony?
Bevins?
Yes.
Chezak?
Nope.
Johnson?
Yes.
Stunek?
Yes.
Yeager?
Yes.
Erickson?
Yes.
O'Day?
Yes, that motion passes. Number 6, we have public forum. This is time allocated for citizens to bring matters not on the agenda to the attention of the council. Time limits may be imposed. So it is 7:35. We'll now open the public forum. If you have anything you'd like to address the council on that is not on the agenda, please come forward. If you're online, press *3. Not seeing any online. Again, I'll ask if you're here to address the council on anything not on the agenda, please step forward. Looks like not. It is 7:36. We'll close the public forum. Moving on to number 7. These are presentations. We have one presentation tonight. This is the Camp Ripley Community Brief. Please step forward.
Yes, so thank you for having us again this year.
Just name.
Oh,
before we
Troy
start.
Fink, I'm the garrison commander of Camp Ripley.
Thank you, sir.
So you guys have seen this before in previous years, not a whole lot of changes from last year's update. But there is some small things, and then obviously, as we look at the summer months and all the training and things that I understand that there's a public interest in what we're doing on Camp Ripley for training and things. So we'll cover some of that within this update. Again, Camp Ripley's, I'm supposed to do this, right? There we go. So Camp Ripley's mission, obviously, and really where I focus and have been focusing on is really the public relations. And this is really kind of part of that, right? Communicating to the city leaders, talking to them about what is going on at Camp Ripley, providing that transparency across the board. Moving into the leadership of the Minnesota Guard, again, no changes from last year. Major General Sean Mankey is the Adjutant General of the state of Minnesota, and his Command Chief Master Sergeant Lisa Erickson. They reside in St. Paul at the AGO office. And then our division leadership, which is Major General Charles Kemper and his Command Sergeant Major, they had just returned from Operation Spartan Shield. So they had about a 9-month deployment overseas, and they are now back home reintegrating with their families. And then the Camp Ripley leadership, of course, myself and my Command Sergeant Major Ryan Hofstede. Obviously, we are at Camp Ripley day in and day out, so that's where you can find us if necessary. Next slide is the economic impact that Camp Ripley has on the surrounding area. It just nearly $83 million. The big chunk of this really falls inside of the construction and the infrastructure that we do on a regular basis on the base. So, and that's about 21 million, a little more than 21 million of that 82, almost $83 million. Obviously, I think everybody in the room knows where Camp Ripley is located, smack dab center of the state of Minnesota. Everything is pretty self-explanatory on this slide with the exception of what is a level 2 training center, and there's only 5 levels of training centers across the nation, 1 being the highest and then 5 being the smallest. There are really only 2 level 1s across the nation. That's Camp Shelby, Mississippi and Camp Atterbury, Indiana, and then there's 9 level 2 training centers across the nation. And we basically have the capability of performing basically heavy maneuver, which is tanks, Bradleys, aviation, artillery. Basically, if it's in the Army's inventory, we can probably train it at Camp Ripley. Some of our accomplishments moving forward here in 2024, really bring your attention to the second bullet. Camp Ripley was the 3rd highest in terms of throughput of soldiers coming through the gates at Camp Ripley in 2024, beat only by level 2 training centers, or level 1 training centers, excuse me. So, and then what's not on this slide, but I did want to highlight it here tonight, we were able to acquire 3 individual daycare providers to provide daycare to soldiers' families on base. So that is a huge win for us. Moving on to support the civil authorities, obviously the Minnesota National Guard has been involved in many different activations by the governor. And this is basically how the process really works. You have the incident that occurs, the sheriff officer or the sheriff office basically reports to Homeland Security and Emergency Management, and then that ultimately goes to the governor for final approval. And these are just some typical missions the Guard would perform under the state active duty executive orders. Moving on to a little bit of the construction update. So we are looking at doing a new access control point, basically a new main gate. That should be coming about in 2027. And that really, basically what that will do for us is provide all of the force protection, anti-terrorism measures that a gate should supposed to have on any installation across the 54. And we're pretty excited about this. It doesn't shut down or remove the old main gate. That will stay as an iconic piece of Camp Ripley. So we're pretty excited about moving that forward. And then just some smaller items on the list. My next slide is actually the museum update. This is moving along quite nicely. There are actual cameras with the construction firm that they monitor. You can actually watch live cameras as they're working on the project. It's pretty cool. And I can provide that link to anybody that is interested in having that. But this is, all the walls are erect. We're working on the roof assembly right now. And we, again, look to have this opened by June, July, maybe August, depending on what weather does to us in 2026. Here's really the meat and potatoes. This is what the public really is interested in, I think. April and June are really our high water marks for throughput this year. Last year, as you know, we had the XCTC exercise on the installation, which really pushed us all the way through June and July of having that as being our high water mark. But this year it's April and June is actually going to be probably the loudest Camp Ripley will be all summer, with the artillery and the aviation assets that are coming in to train this year. So, and then the rest of the year, July, August, September, and even through October, we're looking at pretty much our normal flow of units and soldiers that come and train at Camp Ripley. Some of our state partners that we obviously deal with, Homeland Security, Emergency Management, obviously we're very well connected and tied into those folks on a regular basis. Our Minnesota State Patrol and our Minnesota DNR actually have permanent occupancy on Camp Ripley and operate their academies off of Camp Ripley. And then we've grown a pretty good relationship now with the Minnesota Department of Transportation, where they're bringing in their snowplow driving school on Camp Ripley. And then obviously just the things that we're trying to deal with the new access control point and Highway 115 that goes east and west there. So soldier and family partners, obviously, or programs, we've got a lot of resources on Camp Ripley. And sometimes these resources aren't utilized very much. So if you know veterans or family members of veterans that are seeking additional help, whether it's financial, whether it's mental health, whether it's whatever it is, please reach out and contact us with those folks' names so that we can get them the necessary care and programs that they're entitled to. Community outreach, again, I'm just going to highlight probably the first bullet there. This September we'll have our open house again. It happens every other year. So last year we had some weather issues where we didn't bring in a lot of the air assets like the C-130s, the Black Hawk helicopters, the Chinook helicopters. But we're hoping this year that we'll be able to have all of those displays and those vendors again on the ground in September. But these are just some of the things that we do on an annual basis to have community outreach. The environmental programs, again, this is really a true partnership across the board because we can't really do all of the military training that we do without preserving and maintaining our environment. So the training base is just nearly 53,000 acres of training and maneuver space mixed in with a bunch of live fire ranges and things like that. So as we kind of destroy the environment doing military training, our environmental team comes right behind us and helps us restore tank trails and different things. And we'll get into a little bit about the prescribed fire. Excuse me. The prescribed fire that we do really helps us maintain some of that as well. Getting rid of, invasive species, buckthorn and different things like that, that keeps our training center open and usable. Just some of the partners that the environmental team work with. Again, I'll just highlight the third bullet down, Central Lakes College, a great partnership with those folks out there. We bring in students to do all kinds of different things, primarily on the environmental side. If they're going to Central Lakes College to seek to be a conservation officer or something to that effect, we bring them out to Camp Ripley, team them up with DNR folks, and get them practical, hands-on experiences at a very young age. So I think it's a great program, a great partnership that we hope to continue with Central Lakes College. I hit on the prescribed burns. This year we're looking just short of 15,000 acres in terms of prescribed burns. Obviously, when we do these things, weather has got to cooperate, and then we also, through local media, newspaper or radio, or even our own social media platforms, try to communicate to the public when these things are occurring so that people aren't calling the local law enforcement or the fire departments saying something's on fire. It's typically just us, and we try to communicate that well ahead of time. But again, it's dependent on the weather. The Army Combatable Use Buffer, again, this is just a phenomenal program, federal program that is out there that allows us to not have encroachment onto the training base, where people are building new houses or building establishments around the installation. It obviously really enables us to keep some of the noise complaints down, even though the noise is still there, but with people farther away from the training base, it does help. And we've got about 40,000 acres now enrolled into the program, and it's going strong. So with that, this is the unexplored, basically the 3 R's: recognize, retreat, and report. If you ever were to come across anything like this at all, we obviously, in the civilian sector, we obviously recommend you call the 911, and then they'll either call EOD assets. But if you were to be on base and you were to happen to find something like this lying around, please just report it, and we'll take care of what needs to be taken care of. I mean, Camp Ripley was established in 1930. There's been a lot of things that have gone on since 1930 in terms of munitions. So, and that is my update, subject to any questions or dialogue from the city council.
Thank you, Colonel Fink. Does anybody have any questions for the Colonel?
President O'Day? I have a couple, if you don't mind.
Absolutely.
What is the difference between, in a nutshell, between your level 2 and a level 1?
Basically, the ability to mobilize
Okay.
soldiers and units
Okay.
is really the only difference.
And then with daycare facility, is it on base?
It is on base.
Okay, do you get a reprieve from all the red tape the state of Minnesota requires of daycare
A,
providers?
a soldier can apply to the state grant to make their daycare less money. The money still goes to the daycare at whatever price they're charging you, but the soldier gets a reprieve if they apply for.
I meant the reprieve of the daycare operation. They have a lot of red tape they have to go to. The
Well,
operation.
we worked through a lot of those things,
Okay.
and we used a lot of our community partners, and I know there's a few folks out of Sourcewell and different things like that that we were able to cut through a lot of those things. So it's a benefit to the provider themselves, to where they're not being to have to pay for a lot of different things
Okay.
on the installation.
And then one other question.
Yeah.
Do you have any kind of silly naming of your tanks or anything like that? You guys
Well, I'm sure the units get pretty passionate about their pieces of equipment and give them names, but from my foxhole, no, I don't do that.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Any others or discussion?
Anyone else? Mayor Bedell?
That sounds like one of those instances of don't tell the boss.
Yeah.
I just wanted to say that, you know, you guys have been coming here every year, and I really appreciate it. And the one thing you continue to talk about is the museum, and it's just a great thing to see happening. And just today, I was in Little Falls, so I had to drive right by there.
Yeah.
And it's going to be awesome. I'm really excited. So, and to see the work that's already happened with it, it's going to be awesome. Right there on the road, I can't wait. So
Yeah, I think it's going to bring a lot more of the public in versus having it on the installation itself. So yeah, we're excited to tell the Minnesota veteran story.
yeah, what a great location
Yeah.
for it. So really, hats off on that.
Cool.
Anyone else? Thank you, Colonel. Thank you for everything you
You
guys
bet.
do. Such a huge part of the area. We love having you around here. I love hearing the bombs go off. It just makes me feel more safe. Thank you.
Thank you.
You're free to stick around if you want, but I don't know if you really want.
I think I'm going to sneak out if that's all right.
We'll see you in a year. All right. All right, moving on, number 8, we have council committee reports. First up, 8A, we have Safety and Public Works Committee Chair, Tad Erickson.
Thank you, Mr. President. We have one item on our agenda, and this is to authorize the police department to apply for the Lucas Project Grant. Motion coming out of committee is to authorize the police department to apply for said grant.
Second.
Motion by Erickson, second by Chezak. Any discussion?
I'll just, if I could, just elaborate briefly. What this is a grant program to allow the department to apply for this device that is an automatic chest compression system. And my understanding, I'm told that it provides better chest compressions, perfect chest compressions, better than a human can provide. And it also, since it's automatic, it allows the officer to apply that and then also then, you know, be up, doing other things, and not having to be focused on the patient, so.
Thank you, Chairman Erickson. Any more discussion? Hearing none, let's go to a vote. All in favor? Aye. Against, same sign. That motion passes.
End of report.
Thank you, Chairman Erickson. Next, we have 8B, Personnel and Finance Committee Chairman Gabe Johnson.
Thank you, Mr. President. I got a tip of the cap to Chairman Erickson there. I don't think we can go faster than him this time.
You can try.
We have 6 items, the first of which is to authorize technology renovations, and the motion is to authorize withholding a portion of the cable franchise fees for 24 and 25 and using those funds to offset expenses incurred with the integration of the technology department, and I so move.
Second.
Motion by Johnson, second by Stunek. Mr. Johnson.
Yeah, and I don't know if withholding is the right word, but we haven't been paying CLC while they haven't been performing the services for us. So we have this money from the last couple of years when CLC wasn't performing the duties. So this motion is to basically use that money to offset the costs to get everything up and running in the technology department here at City Hall.
Thank you, Chairman Johnson. And what exactly is that total? Do we know? It doesn't have to be exact.
37,000 and change.
Okay.
I mean, there's over 30,000 that we haven't paid to the CLC, so it's mostly covered there.
Thank you. Any more discussion?
Mr.
Chezak?
President? Yeah, I emailed Sean and he gave me a very good response to some of my questions, and he did copy this, BCC'd it to the council. Came in a little late, but I think we're a little remiss in not using some of these funds to pay our staff that's been doing this job. And if you get a chance to read that email, maybe we could bring this back if our finance chair would consider that. You look that over when you get a chance. And there's money there that we do have in our general fund that can be used to pay our staff, if I'm not mistaken. So if it's there, we should use it. And that's all I'd like you to, for the rest of you to look at and see what you think. That's all I have right now, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. Chesak. Anyone else? No more discussion? Hearing none, let's go to a vote. All in favor? Aye. Against, same sign. That motion passes.
Okay,
Again,
next
Chairman
up.
Erickson, or Chairman Johnson, whoever you are.
Thank you, Mr. President. Next up is discussion of orderly annexation of Riverside Drive, and we had a robust conversation about taxing philosophy and fees and hookup charges. The motion is to amend the 1997 policy to eliminate the rural service district moving forward and to set connection fees for the Riverside Drive area. And I so move.
Second.
Motion by Johnson, second by Bevins. Mr. Johnson.
So it's not necessarily moving forward on annexation, but it's getting our ducks in a row for if we do this orderly annexation, where we'll have the policy in place that sets the district they're in, that sets their taxes, that'll set what their connection charges will be when they do hook up to our utilities. We're gonna get all that work done before we start annexing properties into the city.
Thank you, Chairman Johnson. Any questions?
President O'Day?
Chesak?
Thank you. Is this a policy or an ordinance we have on that? That, for the, for these, what you're going, the 1997, what you want to remove or whatever, is that a policy or is that an ordinance?
Looks like it's listed as a policy.
Okay. I just wanted to make sure.
Correct, Connie?
It is a policy, and then any changes to the rural service district was done by ordinance. So I think we can just change the policy, because we're not going to change the current properties that are already in the rural service district. They will stay in the rural service district.
We're gonna honor our past promises, but we're not gonna move forward with the rural service district.
That was gonna be my
Policy.
question. Okay.
Thank you.
Any more questions? Discussion? Hearing none, let's go to a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Against, same sign. That motion passes. Chairman Johnson.
Thank you, Mr. President. Next up is to ratify a hiring, and the motion is to ratify the hiring of Courtney DeShane for the Police Records Management Technician position effective March 5th. Further, that should be placed on step 1 of the Police Records Management Technician wage grid of $25.32 per hour. And I so move.
Second.
Motion by Johnson, second by Stunek. Chairman Johnson.
If you note in the council agenda request, we received 41 applications for this position. So people are interested in working for the city and our fine police department.
Thank you, Chairman Johnson. Any more discussion? Seeing none, let's go to a vote. All in favor? Aye. Against, same sign. Motion passes. Chairman Johnson.
Next up is a reclassification, and the motion is to reclassify Aaron Anderson to the technology coordinator position effective March 18th. Further, that he be placed on step 7 of the technology coordinator wage grid at $60.46 per hour, and I so move.
Second.
Motion by Johnson, second by Bevins. Chairman Johnson.
Yeah, this is Aaron applied for this, is taking this position. Step 7 is because that is the current step he is on, so he's actually not even getting a 3% wage adjustment. He's just a flat lateral move over to this wage grid in this position.
Thank you. No more discussion? Let's go to a vote. All in favor? Aye. Against, same sign. That motion passes. Chairman Johnson.
Okay, next up is to ratify contract terms and wage resolution. It's a couple of actions. First is a motion to ratify the attached tentative agreement summary and arbitrator Kelly's decision regarding the 24 to 26 IBEW Local Number 31 union contract representing the public utilities employees, and I so move.
Second.
Motion by Johnson, second by Stunek. Chairman Johnson.
So this is what we've been working on for a long time now, but the arbitrator put his decision down. We must go with it. Fortunately, it's what we wanted, so we get to go with what we wanted for wages and wage adjustments. This is just approving it here.
Thank you, Chairman Johnson. Any discussion? Hearing none, let's go to a vote. All in favor? Aye. Against, same sign. Motion passes. Chairman Johnson?
Okay, next up, we also have a resolution, President.
Got it.
So the motion is to adopt the attached resolution setting the 24 to 26 wages for the IBEW Local Number 31 Union Public Utilities Employees, and I so move.
Second.
Motion by Johnson, second by Stunek. More discussion? Seeing none? Tony, please call the roll.
Bevins?
Yes.
Chezak?
Yes.
Johnson?
Yes.
Stunek?
Yes.
Yeager?
Yep.
Erickson?
Yes.
O'Day?
Yes. That resolution passes. Chairman Johnson?
Okay, and the last item on our agenda today is a Crow Wing County Historical Society donation request. And the motion is to authorize a $500 donation to the Crow Wing County Historical Society to be paid out of the special projects budgeted line item, and I so move.
Second.
Motion by Johnson, second by Bevins. Chairman Johnson?
As you see, Connie included the past amounts we've given them. In a couple of years, it was nothing, but it's usually been $500 down to $300. But it's a legal donation that we can make according to state statute, and we typically do give something over to the Historical Society. Connie did the math, and we're legally allowed to give up to $297,000. But I think $500 is a fair donation to give, so that's the motion.
Thank you, Chairman Johnson. Any other discussion? Seeing none, let's go to a vote. All in favor? Aye. Against, same sign. That motion passes. Chairman Johnson?
Report.
Thank you, Chairman Johnson. Moving on to number 9, unfinished business. First, we have call for applicants with Mayor Bedell.
Yes, the following commissions, and let's turn our microphone on first. The following boards and commission have openings on them. Charter Commission, 2 terms expiring 2025, 2 terms expiring 2026. Housing Redevelopment Authority, 1 term expiring 2027. Library, 1 term expiring 2027. Public Utilities, 1 term expiring 2028. And the Transportation Advisory Committee, 2 terms expiring 2026.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
President O'Day.
Mr. Chezak.
Could we check on the Transit Advisory Committee? I think, Tony, did you get back to me on that?
What are you
think-
asking?
There was, it says two openings, and I think there's 3.
Okay.
Did we ever find out? I emailed Tony on that, I do believe.
Yes, I didn't have a chance to email you today, Jeff. It is 3.
It is 3, okay.
So
Thank you.
Currently have 3, looking for 2 more?
The mayor would like
No,
to.
we have 4, we're looking for 3.
Okay.
The mayor would like to amend his Transportation Advisory Committee to 3 terms expiring 2026.
Got it.
Good job.
All right. As council president, we're looking for 3 terms to fill the Water Tower Committee. We still don't have expiration dates on this one, but I would like to appoint one person that I know of that has applied. That's Gracie Chezak.
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion by Johnson, second by Bevins. Any discussion? Hearing none, go to a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Against, same sign. That one passes. It sounds like we might have 2 more. Staff, do we know if we have had 2 more? I was just told that we have 2 more people that are willing or planning on applying. No? Okay. We'll wait for a couple weeks.
Well, get
Perfect.
on it, Tony.
Moving on, 9B, we have a public hearing and a resolution regarding the conduit debt for Country Manor project. This one, I believe, is
Me.
Finance Director Hillman.
So the city was requested to issue conduit debt for the Country Manor project of up to $50 million. A city is allowed to act as a conduit for certain types of private entities to be able to obtain tax-exempt financing for certain projects, resulting in lower interest rate for the borrower. Country Manor meets these requirements. By the city issuing conduit debt, there is no obligation for the city to pay the debt. There is no impact on the city's credit rating, and the conduit debt does not go towards the city's debt limit. It does, however, count towards the city's annual $10 million limit to issue bank-qualified bonds. This could result in the city having to pay higher interest rate when the city issues bonds in 2025 for its construction projects. As a result, to make the city whole, there is a BQ fee agreement between the city and Country Manor, in which Country Manor will agree to pay the city the present value of the difference in interest rates for the life of the bond. With that, I would like to turn it over to Sophia Leike with QTAC Rock to further discuss the request that is before council tonight.
Thank you, Connie. And Sophia,
Yes, thank you. The request, so the city council is holding a public hearing. It's required both under state law and federal tax law. This is at least the second time that this project has been before this council. The city council has preliminarily approved the issuance of bonds in accordance with the resolution calling a public hearing for tonight. The resolution before the city council is to provide final approval for the issuance of bonds in a not to exceed principal amount of 50 million. The bonds are going to be issued pursuant to indentures of trust and this resolution, as well as state and federal tax law. Our office drafted several of the bond documents that are being approved by the resolution tonight as well, including an indenture, loan agreement, and bond purchase agreement for each series of bonds. The city is being asked to issue 2 series of bonds. One, we have nicknamed the senior bonds, and then the second series, we've nicknamed the subordinate bonds. I'm happy to take any questions, but as Connie noted, that these are conduit revenue bonds for which the city is not obligated to make any repayments. The only impact to the city is the ability of the city to issue bank qualified bonds in calendar year 2025. But as Connie explained, we prepared also a BQ fee agreement whereby the borrower will pay an estimated amount to compensate the city for any increased cost in issuing its own bonds for its construction projects in 2025.
thank you, Sophia. Does anybody have questions for Sophia?
President Bevins?
Mr. Chesak?
Yeah, Sophia, I think this was in our report, but the fees you charge the city for this, are they then applied to the developer on this?
That's right. My bond counsel fee is paid by the conduit borrower, which is typical in these types of situations and is consistent with the type of transaction this is. The city is acting as a conduit. It's issuing the debt only to provide the tax exemption. It's not actually doing the project or paying anything towards the project.
Thank you. That's all I have, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. Chesak. Anyone else? Thank you, Sophia.
You bet. Thank
Does
you.
anybody have any questions for Connie either? Sounds like no. All right, then we will open the public hearing for the conduit debt having to do with the Country Manor project. It is 8:08. If anybody's here to speak on this, please step forward. If you're online, you want to speak on this, hit *3. Nobody's running to the microphone. I'll ask one more time. If anybody's here to speak on this, please come forward or hit *3 if you're online. Looks like nobody. And we will close the public hearing at 8:09. Now we're looking for a motion to adopt the resolution approving the plan of financing for a senior living campus in the city to be financed with conduit revenue bonds and authorizing the issuance of such bonds for the benefit of Country Manor Campus Brainerd LLC, approving a housing program, authorizing the execution of documents, and taking other actions in connection therewith.
So moved.
Second.
It's a little open-ended, isn't it?
It's,
We have a motion by Johnson, second by Chesak, I believe.
Yep.
Any discussion? No discussion. All right, that is a resolution. Tony, please call the roll.
Bevins?
yes.
Chesak?
Yes.
Johnson?
Yes.
Stunek?
Yes.
Yeager?
Yep.
Erickson?
Yes.
O'Day?
Yes, that resolution passes. Moving on to new business. For 10A, we have authorization to the HRA on behalf of the city to submit Small Cities Development Program grant application to Department of Employment and Economic Development. Again, this is Connie Hillman.
Actually, I'm going to turn it over to Mr. John Stromer with the HRA.
Welcome, John.
Thank you, Chair O'Day and members of the council. As you might remember, last fall, we did submit a preliminary proposal to the Minnesota Department of Employment and Economic Development. That was on behalf of the city of Brainerd. It was for what is deemed streetscape. So we have a current small cities grant that we're doing some housing rehab. This is another eligible activity. These are community development block grant dollars that trickle down to non-entitlement communities that we can apply for. So we apply for them on behalf of the city. That preliminary proposal that we submitted was deemed competitive, which means we're allowed to submit an application. In order to submit an application, which is due April 16th, we do need to request that the city council pass a resolution allowing for that application, in addition to approving the citizen participation plan, a conflict of interest disclosure plan, and then we also would ask that the council would set a public hearing for next meeting for comments regarding the citizen participation plan.
Thank you, John. Anyone have questions for John?
President O'Day?
Mr. Chazak?
Yeah, thank you, John. The document, it's titled the preliminary, the one that you said had, and it has a acceptance date of November 27, 2024. So that kind of confused me. But why is that document in our packet when you have shouldn't you be providing the one you're submitting after you've been approved? I mean, or what's the term you used? It's
The application, yes, Councilman Chazak. So that was just included to show that we did what we were asking for, the request we made. Essentially, the application is very similar to that, and we don't have that final document prepared yet. We do need all of these plans put in place before we'll have that complete document. So that is why we included the preliminary proposal, just to give the background of the amounts we're requesting and what information was needed to submit for that.
Yeah, and I have one other question on that. It said this is a streetscape application, like exclusively or something. It was only for that, but there's a whole there's a whole litany of other items such as sewer and street and other things that this type of proposal can qualify for. But my question was, if this is exclusive to a streetscape, why are all those other things in that proposal? Because it seems like the proposal, or the application, the writing says it's for streetscape only. So is that how you identified it when you submitted that preliminary document? Was that your writing in that, or is that part of the document?
That's part of the document. They deem streetscape under your kind of the larger umbrella of public facilities. Streetscape is an eligible activity under that larger umbrella. So this is a kind of a standardized form that allows for application of all those items. We just focused on streetscape. So that's why it is a little confusing. There's a lot more information that I feel would need to be included in there, but that's a document that we have to
I felt the
complete.
same way. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you, Mr. Chazak. Anybody else have questions? Thank you, John.
Thank you.
All right, so we're looking to adopt the resolution authorizing the local government application.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Chazak, second by Johnson.
I'd be happy to.
Yeah, we'll do this as a resolution and then we'll go with the rest as one. Tony, any discussion first? Tony?
Bevins?
Yes.
Chezak?
Yes.
Johnson?
Yes.
Junik?
Yes.
Yeager?
Yes.
Erickson?
Yes.
O'Day?
Yes, that resolution passes. Next, we have parts 2, 3, and 4. This is call for a public hearing to be held on April 7th, 2025 at the council meeting authorizing appropriate signatures on the citizen participation plan and authorization of the appropriate signatures on the conflict of interest disclosure form.
Move approval of all three.
Second.
Motion by Johnson, second by Bevins. Any discussion? Seeing none, we'll go to a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Against, same sign. That passes. All right, moving on, 10B. we have authorization of development opportunity letters. This is Community Development Director James Kramvik.
Thank you, Mr. President. So staff have researched underdeveloped and underutilized rental properties in the city of Brainerd and is proposing to send out development opportunity letters to rental property owners along with their rental renewal letter that they will receive in April. I can answer any questions and seeking direction.
Thank you, Mr. Kramvik. Anybody have questions for Mr. Kramvik?
Mr. President, move to approve.
Motion by Chezak,
Second.
second by Johnson. Mr. Mayor.
Yeah, I just have one comment on the letter. Don't bury the lead. Don't be afraid to tell people there's an opportunity here. It took me 2 paragraphs to get to, hey, there's a great opportunity here for you. So don't bury the lead. Don't be afraid. Put a big stamp on there that says, look at the opportunities we're giving you right now before you get 3 paragraphs into this thing.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Anyone else? Hearing none, go to a vote. All in favor? Aye. Against, same sign. That one passes. 10C, we have a resolution to adopt for denial of the zoning change and text amendment request for Paradigm Auto. Again, Community Development Director James Kramvik.
Thank you, Mr. President. So staff have drafted a resolution denying the request and stating the findings provided by council at the March 3rd meeting. The resolution was reviewed by the city attorney and staff recommend approval of the attached resolution.
Thank you, James. Anyone have questions on this?
Move to approve. Second.
Motion by Bevins, second by Stunek. Any more discussion? Mr. Johnson.
Drove by the property today and lost count. There were so many U-Hauls parked there. It was significantly more than 7, so they're still out of compliance.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson. All right, no more discussion. Let's go to a vote. All in
Resolution.
favor? Oh, I thought I was gonna get them all tonight.
Lot of
Tony,
resolutions.
please call the roll.
Bevins?
Yes.
Chezak?
Yes.
Johnson?
Yep.
Stunek?
Yes.
Yeager?
Yep.
Erickson?
Yes.
O'Day?
Yes, that resolution passes. We have another resolution, 10D. This is receiving the feasibility report and the call for a public hearing on improvement 2314 Hawkins Joseph Ronald resurfacing project. This is Public Works Director Mike Habegorst.
Thank you, Mr. President. And this project was brought to you last month, and now we're on stage 2 of this. And we are now just asking for the resolution to be approved for the feasibility study and for a public hearing to be held on April 21st. This project will be including some fire hydrants and the main water line in the alley between Joseph and Paul. And if we have any very specific questions, we have the engineering company here too to answer anything, but we're on stage 2 of the step 5 of this project. So at that time, you can ask any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Habegorst. Anybody have questions? Mr. Chezak?
Yeah, this is essentially like 6 blocks of street construction, correct?
Yes,
Okay, and then the alley between the 2 blocks,
in between those Joseph and Paul, yes.
north and south. So that was the alley that we discussed last year that we had put off for a year. So my question is, weren't these streets eligible last year for the South Brainerd project? Because they're right there in that neighborhood, essentially border the 7th Street. Is
I
that-
cannot speak of last year.
Okay, would that be something that maybe our engineer, was this, were these included, these streets, because of the alley project?
Yeah, I would just like to defer to our city engineer, Jesse.
Okay,
Mr. Dean?
City Council, so last year's alley project was initiated as originally just the alley. The streets were asked at a future council meeting whether or not the council wanted to include with the scope of work when we were discussing the water main underneath Joseph and Ronald. And it'll be up to the council if you would like to continue to include those 2 blocks of resurfacing with the project moving forward. But as of last year, when the original discussion came up, it was central to just the alley,
so.
if that's what you're asking.
So my question is, I know the alley was additional, they wanted, the property owners petitioned to have that done along with the South Brainerd street projects that were going to be done. And we held off on that to do it this year. And my question is, are you including the streets, the east-west streets, because of the alley project? Would you be doing these streets if the alley was not gonna be done this year, I guess?
No, the streets really kind of came up because the water main was getting replaced, not only in the alley, but originally BPU also wanted to do some of the water main, like on Joseph. And we were going to be trenching through those. We're backing up on some of the Joseph water main, but we're still trenching in quite a bit of the roadway pavement on both Joseph and Ronald as part of the project. So right now it's included in the scope, but it'll be up to the council if they want to continue to move that forward.
Okay, and I have one more question, Mr. President. So when the water line replacement came up at the utility commission meeting, it was stated 2, perhaps 3 times that one of the things was going to be done is communicate with the property owners on the alley that their service lines, because of their locations, some under sheds or garages, and the potential there of having the galvanized or lead, I don't know if they've all been identified or not, but it was gonna give the property owners a notice well in advance to have them be made aware that this will be an opportune time to get their service lines. Is there a plan to have those property owners on that water line notified of this project so they can have a full idea of the time, the cost, and everything if they want to participate in getting their service line replaced at the time we do that water line?
Mr. Habergors?
Yes, we've been meeting with our Chris Evans with the public utilities, and he might be able to speak more specifically on those service lines. They're going to be receiving grant money. I'm not sure when that is going to be coming in, but we are doing our construction meetings with Chris Evans and his staff, and we've already discussed that. So, Chris, if you would like to add anything to that?
Yeah, thank you very much. Yeah, as far as the service lines, I believe our staff has contacted the accounts on the alley to that. As far as funding, there is no funding from the state as far as for the replacements for this year at this time. So as far as whether or not that they could be potential reimbursement or something next year for any work done this year, that's still up in the air.
Okay, and as far as you know, there's no retroactive, perhaps they do it this year and it's funding comes in next year, they probably won't be eligible. I think you indicated that in an email you sent.
Yeah, correct. There's, at this point, there doesn't appear to be any retroactive or reimbursement for prior work.
Okay. All right, I just want to make sure that we have the residents that live along that water line, they give proper notice, and there was a lot of discussion at utility commission meetings about notifying the property owners, communicating with them, letting them know what's going on so they can make a decision whether it's funded or not. So that's all I got, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. Chesak. Anybody else have questions for staff? All right, we're looking for a resolution. Do we need a separate resolution from the public hearing establishment, or is this all in one resolution, Tony? Just one? Okay. Looking for a resolution receiving the feasibility report and calling for a public hearing on the proposed improvement to be held April 21st, 2025 at 7:30 PM.
Move adoption.
Second.
Motion by Johnson, second by Erickson. Any discussion? Hearing none, let's go to a vote with a resolution, roll call vote. Let's do it that way.
Bevins?
Yes.
Chesak?
Yes.
Johnson?
Yes.
Stunek?
Yes.
Yeager?
Yes.
Erickson?
Yes.
O'Day?
Yes, that resolution passes. Moving on, we have an additional item. This is 10E, the discussion on email with priorities list from Administrator Broyles. Mr. Chesak, you asked for this one. We'll hand it over to you.
Yeah, I think it's just something I'd like to see the council approve, having a discussion on those priorities as indicated by Administrator Broyles following our retreat. I hope you all had a chance to read the email. It indicated some of our priorities that we mentioned, and then he followed up underneath that saying these will be staff priorities moving forward. And I would so like to make a motion to that effect that we schedule this. The only thing is I want to make sure he's available, and I thought maybe we could do it at our next meeting. I think it's the April 1st meeting.
7th.
Or, sorry, that I move that we have that come back, or discussion of those priorities at the April 1st council meeting. That specific email discussion of, and maybe some action if.
I believe it's the 7th.
Is it the 7th?
First council meeting in April.
7th, correct, April 7th.
Okay.
That would be, sorry.
We have a motion by Chesak. Do we have a second?
I'll second that.
Second by Johnson. Chairman Johnson, go ahead.
Yeah, I support the idea of doing this. I do think we should also kind of look at other initiatives and other priorities we've had in the past that aren't necessarily listed here, but, you know, coming to a final resolution on the airport and things like that, I think should be part of this discussion too, so we have more of a comprehensive list of here's where we really want staff to be focusing their time. But I support the idea of bringing this back in April and talking about it.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson.
President, to Mr. Johnson's point, would it be something that if, I just asked Gabe, bringing in the airport, are you suggesting that because it was discussed briefly at the retreat? Or?
Just because I think it would give staff good direction if we gave them all of our priorities or prioritized everything that we're working on as a city instead of having different segments of priorities and different silos of priorities. I think we should, if that makes sense, kind of have an all-encompassing priority list.
Okay, that wasn't in the email, anything about the airport that I recall. So
Nothing was in the email about the airport.
do you want to include it? I'll put that in my motion.
Sure.
Okay, I'll add that to my motion that we include that discussion as well with that email we received on Wednesday, the 12th.
All right, and I'll second that.
All right, we have a change in the motion. Seconder's okay. I think that this is something that's important that we all get on the same page with. So I'm glad that you're bringing this up, Mr. Chesak. But how we do that efficiently, I think we'll have to determine that over the next couple weeks. I think we have a 3-week break, actually, so plenty of time for any council members to take a look at that list, see if there's anything that you adamantly disagree with. Have that in mind when you come back to that meeting. If there's 1 or 2 things that you really think should be on there, we can discuss that as well. I'm going to say that maybe the airport, but that's going to be on there by motion. So I think it's productive to have that conversation. We kind of left that meeting touching on the conversation, but it's pretty important that we get that right. So, Mr. Mayor?
Yeah, I just wanted to chime in and just say that I think it's important that we have actual priorities. What are the actual priorities of the council? And not just, I would like more information on that. To me, more information on that is not a priority. That is, I'd like more information to be able to figure out whether or not that is a priority. So I'd like to get us more in line with what our actual priorities are.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Anyone else?
If I may?
Mr. Chesak?
The one concern I had is we were asked to give our, it's kind of like on the spot here, what are your priorities? We sat through 5+ hours of presentations, which I didn't have any problem with any of those. However, to come up with our priorities in that instant, essentially, and then move forward, and then our administrator kind of recites back to us what we said, perhaps not entirely, portions of what we said maybe on some of them, but then there's a list of priorities that he's moving forward with staff that I think if we're going to take action, as we've always tried to do, we do it by a council vote. And that really didn't happen. So, and based on that, I do have a second motion on one of our items that we consensually approved. Once we go forward with this, I have one more item.
All right, let's finish this one first. If anybody has any more discussion on this? Looks like no. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Against, same sign. That one passes. Mr. Chesak, you have another motion?
Yes, I would move that the staff move forward with getting the elevator at the annex repaired for that, between that $5,000 and $10,000 range they were talking about.
Second.
Motion by Chesak, second by Johnson. More discussion?
Mr. President, that again was there was no vote and motion made at that retreat, which we should do, and that's why I'm doing this here. So appreciate your support.
Thank you, Mr. Chesak. Is that not on the consent? Okay. Mr. Johnson?
Yeah, I support the motion. I'm all for, voting on everything. But I will go back to what I said at the retreat, that I think a $5,000 repair to an elevator isn't a council level action. I think that's repairs and maintenance that staff just needs to be taken care of and shouldn't just let the elevator be out of commission and then tell us, well, we didn't have $5,000 to fix it. We should always have a maintenance budget and we should always make sure the elevator works. But I support this motion. We can vote on everything for all I care.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson. Anybody else have comments? Hearing none, let's go to a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Against, same sign. That motion passes. Moving on to 11, staff reports. Tony Gage. City Engineer Jesse Dean. Chief Davis.
Nothing to add, thank you.
Sean Strong.
Nothing to add.
Mike Abigorst.
Yes, thank you, Mr. President. Our Recreation Division is in full swing for the summer. We're working on agreements with YMCA, Community Development, and our own programming. So shortly in the next month or so, you'll be receiving a lot of flyers on our recreational programs. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr.
Mr.
Abigorst.
President, may I ask Mike a question?
Well, I don't see why not.
Hey, Mike, at our last Safety and Public Works meeting, we had that issue with the RFP from the engineering firms, the consultants, and I am remiss for not including that in my motion. That did pass. We had our two colleagues here wanted to have something come back with a more uniform template of sorts when we go out for those RFPs. Is that something you're working on? Because we did not give you direction.
Was that for that street project where you
That
wanted
was for
them?
the outfall.
Basin.
Oh, yes.
Is that something you'll be working on? Because again, we were coming out of committee and I thought about it later, without actual direction via motion and voting. So if it's needed, I'd be willing to make a motion to that effect, which was going to happen out of committee without a motion at our last meeting.
It looks like our city engineer has a reply for this.
That's what
Jesse
I'm
Dean.
looking for.
I can clarify, so we can include some more generic pieces of like our request for proposals, like some background, what the scope of services that we're requesting, timeline, deliverables, and things of that nature. Beyond that, it's harder to get into the details because projects and the request for these proposals do vary pretty greatly from project to project. You can't necessarily use the same framework for the M Street outfall as you would for like a street reconstruction, for instance. So you do have to tweak those a little bit. We can keep pretty generic frameworks, which we're trying to do a really good job of making sure that everybody understands what we're looking for from a deliverable standpoint. That helps not only us, but the consulting engineers have a very clear vision of what their expectations are when they're preparing a proposal. So that is something that we are continuing to work on, is making sure that those are very clear and defined as we get to those proposals.
Thank you, Mr. Dean.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, Mike.
Anything more, Mr. Abigorst?
That's it. Thank you.
Community Development Director Kramvik.
Thank you, Mr. President. Just a few things. I was able to take part in the St. Patrick's Day Parade this past weekend. It was a bit blustery with the weather, but still had a great time. My son had a great time being in the parade. So, yeah, I want to thank Mayor Bedole for inviting us to do that. And then secondly, I'll be attending the Northside meeting tomorrow. I'll be discussing, we'll have questions on our administrative citation process, as well as our vacant building registry. And that's everything.
Thank you, Mr. Kramvik. City Attorney Langle.
Nothing from me. Thank you.
Chris Schubert. Chris Evans.
Thank you, Mr. President. Nothing really to add as far as the water, wastewater, and electric per se. However, I would want to mention, and hope I'm not stealing your thunder or Mr. Chesok's thunder, by just mentioning that on Thursday evening past, we held a joint wastewater management board meeting between City of Baxter, City of Brainerd, and BPU to review and kind of approve the draft site assessments for the wastewater treatment plant. And from those, again, it was an assessment that was done by Bolton Mink, and that out of those assessments, we are looking at some future facility upgrade projects and 20-year capital improvement plan for the wastewater plant. So there will be several presentations and then applications and requests for appropriations, grants, and loans in regards to that project. And that's all I have.
Thank you, Mr. Evans. And we have our acting administrator for the day,
Right.
Finance Director Connie Hillman.
She's not acting.
Right, just a couple things to pass along from City Administrator Broyles. Staff has executed an agreement with Larson Elevators to fix the annex
That's quick.
in the amount of $5,146.
Priority one.
This will be paid from the $160,000 that's been set aside for the annex in the capital facilities and equipment fund. So I'm really glad you gave us permission. As Chris mentioned, the wastewater board management met. He said there's gonna be a lot of projects or grants, applications, and loans that are upcoming. Currently, the city has a policy for any grants over $5,000 needs to have council approval. It was a request of the board to see if the city council would be willing to waive this requirement for the wastewater treatment plant. If there is interest, staff will bring a proposed policy to the city council at its next meeting.
Thank you, Connie. So I did miss Eric. Eric, you got anything to add tonight?
Nothing this evening, Mr. President.
Okay, thank you. I'll revisit that in a second here, but let's let the mayor say his words.
Oh, wow, thanks. Vote of confidence. Couple things. One, the St. Patrick's Day stuff got brought up. I want to give a huge shout out to all of our city staff for all the work that they did in preparation for that, but specifically with our streets department. I got lots of compliments from people that were involved about the preparedness and the quick response that we had. I don't know if you know this or not, but it started to rain about midnight and turned into pure ice, and then it started to snow. And our crews were down there getting rid of that snow and getting it out of the way. So just a huge, huge thank you for that. And I just want to share that from the people that were involved in setting it up and also the people that were involved in participating. Just a lot of good things being heard from the city on that. Secondly, and maybe lastly tonight, we'll see how I feel when I'm done. Business after hours, June 24th. We will be at Bryn Pearson, and it is for the water tower. This is an opportunity for citizens to come through and take a look at the water tower and kind of hear the story of where we are with it and where it's going, where it came from. And so that is June 24th, and that will be the business after hours in conjunction with Bryn Pearson and the Brainerd Chamber. So if you're interested in that, just reach out to the Water Tower Committee.
What time?
That's a great question. My email did not say the time. Regular business after hours time. 6 o'clock. That sounds great. Perfect. That's exact. It will be 6 o'clock.
Unofficially.
Unofficially. But just a big shout out for that. And then I'll be coming to the city for just a little request on that as well. Just a personal request. So you'll see that in a future meeting. End of report.
Mayor wants his face painted on the water tower.
Again.
Again, yeah.
Thought we were trying to beautify it.
Moving on to council member reports. We'll start with Chief Stunek.
I have nothing.
Mr. Chezak.
Yeah, Mr. Evans talked about the wastewater management board meeting, and there's a lot going on with that. And I think, Mike, you're gonna talk about the waiving that $5,000 or more grant requests, I believe, right?
Yeah, I'll touch on it.
And then as far as stealing Mike's thunder or my thunder, I've got more thunder that I can know what to do with, so there's no problem stealing any of it, Mr. Evans. That's all I have.
Thank you, Mr. Chezak. Mr. Bevins?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So last week, as you all know, remember, I represented the city of Brainerd at the county board meeting for the request by the ARB to start the process for regional designation. The county board approved that plan unanimously. So I was there with board member Trevor and Mayor Darrell from Baxter, and that went through smoothly. It does not complete the process, it just starts the process. So the county board will be purchasing 70 acres of the ARB and then leasing it back. At that point, they'll own enough of the ARB's property, which is still a small percentage, and to be able to qualify the ARB to be a regional park. So that's great news. And Mr. Kramvik mentioned the Brainerd Northside Neighborhood Association, 6 p.m. at the center, as well as Mr. Kramvik will be, I understand, will be representatives from MnDOT to discuss the Highway 210 Washington Street project. That's it.
Thank you, Mr. Bevins. Mr. Yeager?
Nothing, sir.
Okay. Chairman Johnson?
Thank you, Mr. President. I was at the St. Patrick's Day Parade on Saturday. I thank all the staff, thank Brainerd Community Action, and all the downtown businesses that participate in it. It was the 25th year, and it's not easy to keep something going for 25 years, and they've successfully done it downtown, so just hats off to them.
Top hats off. Thank you, Mr. Johnson. Chairman Erickson?
Yeah, I just wanted to express gratitude to staff for being very responsive to a variety of just minor maintenance requests that passed on from residents. I know they're very small, but they mean a lot to those who bring them up. And then I'm looking forward to participating in the Planning Commission meeting this Wednesday as liaison, and then also liaison to the Region 5 Development Commission later this month on the 27th.
Thank you, Chairman Erickson. Happy St. Patrick's Day, everybody. I thought I'd see more green up here. I see a little on Yeager's tie here. Everybody else is gonna get pinched.
Don't I have green on?
Sure.
Yep.
Jesse's
But-
got his covered.
I do want to touch on the meeting that we had on Thursday. We have Morgan here from, I'm sorry, I forget.
Bolton and Mink.
Bolton and Mink, gave us a presentation that he had already actually given at the previous BPU commission meeting. I suggest that anybody that's interested in learning a little more about this, take a look at that. I think it's 40 minutes in to that meeting. And there's probably a 20-minute presentation, another 20 minutes of discussion. You'll learn quite a bit from that. We probably spoke about this for over an hour, hour and a half, something like that. This is a huge project, and it's one of those examples where the federal government is finding reasons for these regulations, and they want to move quickly on it. I learned at that meeting that there has never been a federal grant to help with this type of project. I don't know if that's going to change, but we've gone from having to get phosphorus out back in 2010. Now they've added nitrogen, and the next one is this PFAS or PFAS, which is a lot of synthetic stuff that comes from, it's all man-made stuff that we're making, but there's like 15,000 plus different chemicals out there, and we have to get it down to almost zero. It's an expensive process, it's an expensive project, and it's expensive all the way into the future. So we're gonna have to figure out some way to get some money for this stuff, because we're talking $60 to $100 million, depending on when and how and what we do. But we're moving forward with some of this stuff. I think we're adding this on to the next meeting, correct? Was this coming up in the next council meeting? Because we had our meeting Thursday. We weren't able to add it to this agenda, but we'll be. I think we'll have that on our next agenda. Just encourage you guys to learn more. It came up that there was actually a grant that was going to be, I think it was, the due date was going to be the following few days. We didn't have time to add it to our agenda to approve it for BPU commission to apply for that. Obviously, we need to find funding in any way we can. We talked a little bit, Chris Evans and I talked a little bit about how maybe for this project, it might be a good idea to come up with a way to get around that for our BPU commission, just based on this project alone. It's something for us to discuss, but I think we can add that on to the next meeting right along with that item. So just want you guys to be aware of that. Other than that, had a great time this weekend at the coldest parade I've ever been to. And hopefully next year's a little warmer.
Well, some of us didn't have a coat on. Some of us went with just a t-shirt, so I don't want to hear anybody talk about how it was cold. It was beautiful, wonderful weather.
Do you have a coat?
So mayor, I love it.
All right. Let's move on to, looks like we're adjourning to two different closed sessions. First one is pursuant to Minnesota statute 13D.05 subdivision 3C3 to discuss negotiations for temporary and permanent easements. And then after that, we have another closed session pursuant to 13D.05 subdivisions 3C3 to discuss offers for easements for the 210 reconstruction project.
So move to adjourn to those.
Second.
Motion by Chesak, second by Stunek.
Jeff seconded.
The old guys.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Against, same side. We're adjourned.
See you, Morgan.
Sorry, to say